Evening, everybody. It's Nick here, and I'll be talking about the CBS show Picard. Now, this was slightly different to, so many shows out there in the fact that you couldn't actually sit and binge it. It came out every week, much like the CBS Discovery, and yeah, that I think actually played against it, to be completely honest with you. But we'll look at that in a moment.
She's the end of all. She's the destroyer.
What the hell are you doing out here, Picard? Saving the galaxy?
We are returning to some fan favourites in the guise of Sir Patrick Stewart and even Brent Spiner, Jonathan Frakes, Marina Sirtis, and a whole bunch of other characters that we absolutely love, like Hugh in Seven of Nine. And in and among all of this, we have a new universe. This is set 20 years after the last time we saw the old universe, which is still the same universe kind of thing, after Star Trek Nemesis. And one of the big things that happened at the end of that was saying goodbye to fan favourite Data, who I loved. I really enjoyed the character. Brent Spiner did a brilliant job of portraying this awkward, geeky kind of android that wanted to be human, much like Pinocchio kind of story. And at the very end, with his last words, I think they were to be or not to be, we said goodbye to him. And we did get a bit of a hint, though, at the very end of that movie of Nemesis, which was a meh kind of movie, that a character that they found some bits and pieces of another Data, sort of Data 0.1, and he's like a 10. And he started playing some of the tunes that his predecessor was basically Data downloaded his brain into him, and it didn't really take. We do get to see him in episode 1 of Picard. He's kind of broken to pieces in a drawer. And that's because the Federation has turned their backs on any development of synths or androids, to be more specific. Why is that? Well, when the mass relocation of Romulans, which was taking place after Romulus was destroyed, basically the sort of androids were in a bit dickish and massacred a whole bunch of people on Mars, like, I suppose if my toaster did that to people I loved, I'd probably also close the entire thing down. But it was also a whole bunch of shenanigans in the background. Yes, this is going to have spoilers. Be careful. So basically, in this whole situation, we've got the Tal Shiar, which is a secret organization in the Romulan Empire, or what was the Romulan Empire. Let's say Romulan race. Can we say that? I'm not sure if we can, but we will. And they have a bit of a racist thing when it comes to androids, because they had a vision. And that vision basically said that, oh my god, the entire galaxy is going to have life wiped out by said androids. I'm still kind of figuring out how those androids that wiped out people from 50,000 years ago, where they are. But hey, this is now we're borrowing Mass Effect material right now. So who the hell knows? And quite frankly, the storytelling throughout Picard is so up and down, I really got lost. And that is the biggest issue that I have with this season, is the storytelling. I think, but we'll get to that in a minute. I'll say the good things first. We'll start with a sort of good thing, a bad thing, and then end on a good thing, maybe. Good things. Of course, the acting is going to be good. We've got Sir Patrick Stewart over here. The guy could telephone home a performance, and it'll be phenomenal. That being said, because this version of Picard is so toned down and so broken after he was basically in charge of the relocation, him and another character called Raffi, and as I said, things went tits up. And he then turned on the Federation, because the Federation said, we're not going to help out anybody now, and we're also closing down the androids. And he was like, I don't like you, Federation, fuck you. And the Federation were like, okay, cool, bye. So he's very disillusioned about this entire thing. In fact, I think it's the first episode, maybe the second episode, he's interviewed by somebody who was obviously from Fox News because of the questions that she asked him after being promising she wouldn't say anything. He freaks out and he's like, fuck the Federation! And good, because the Federation sound like kind of dicks, to be honest with you. Though at the same time, you can kind of understand why. But can you? No, because there's actually a plant from the Tal Shiar in the Federation, has been since 50 years ago, where she grew up in the ranks and became a security officer, head of security as a matter of fact. And so when the androids, which they programmed to turn on the humans, they then covered it up so that they would not get caught. Because the Federation would never investigate why thousands and thousands of its own people were killed by robots because one person said they shouldn't. What? No. Yeah, again, issues with story writing and telling here. Anyway, I was supposed to be saying the good things, wasn't I? The good things were some nostalgia beats, much like the Mandalorian pulled on those heartstrings in every single frame. The Star Trek does the same thing. Picard basically picks up with people like Jonathan Frakes, Marina Sirtis, Brent Spiner, and those characters of Data, Deanna Troi, Will Riker, #1, fire at #1 dead. And of course, other people like Hugh make an appearance, original Borg who turned human, well, actually was always human, but came back to being human. And 7 of 9, who's brilliant. I really, really enjoy her acting and whatnot. Kerry, something or other, Jerry at Ryan. So we have those working quite nicely in here. On top of all of that, we also have a whole bunch of new people. We've got Dr. Agnes Jurati, who is played by Alison Pill, who is quite a cool character. Unfortunately, the writing lets her down in this. The character literally lets someone die, and the next episode she's fucking the owner or stroke captain, because not really captain because Picard's there, but she's then screwing Chris to try and get over that trauma, and everyone forgives her because she did it because she had memories from a mind meld in her mind, but she literally lets this guy die in an agonizing way of dying as well, and everyone forgets it. What? Anyway, in Next Generation, it would have taken a season for people to get over, or they just would have fucking thrown the person into some black goo like they did Tasha. Anywho, so that's Dr. Agnes. Then we have the sort of robot girl who's been alive for, was it 18 months or something like that? And she's quite competently played by Isa Briones, and she plays Daj and Soji Asha. She does a good job in this. I mean, Daj dies in the first episode, I think it is, and says, my sister, go and save her. And the sister happens to be located on a Borg ship that is basically being run and controlled by the Romulans. They call it the Artifact. It's literally a Borg cube. We only get a very, very, very brief moment as to why, or touch on as to why and how they came to own their own Borg cube, like it's something from the fucking Roman Empire. Look at my Roman coin. I've got a Borg cube. And it doesn't really make sense, to be honest with you. No idea why it's there. It just is. A couple of cool moments, though, in the Borg ship. We have one moment where 7 of 9 literally becomes a Borg queen. Fuck yeah! Plugs herself in. Really is worried that she's not going to be able to unplug herself because she's going to love the power. But as she's doing this, every one of her droids gets basically thrown out the vessel in a horrible way, as in they get spaced and they all fucking die. So yes, there's a couple of nice moments and beats that happen on the Borg ship. Again, it's felt like a lot of nostalgia being thrown in your face, which I'm not a fan of that. People who've spoken to me about The Mandalorian know I'm not a fan of having nostalgia thrown in your face for the sake of nostalgia. So anyway, I liked Daj and Soji. Let's move on to Elnor. He's a Romulan refugee who was basically brought up as a guy. He was a Romulan refugee. He was kind of like a ninja, stroke samurai. He was brought up by Romulan nuns. I'm not joking. This is what happens. Anyway, so he apparently Picard was nice to him when he was a kid, and Picard is then indebted to him, and he basically Elnor says that he will fight for him and joins the team. We move on to one of my favorite characters in this entire thing, and that's Rafaela Raffi Musica. She's absolutely brilliant. She's played by Michelle Hurd, and wow, her performance in this is really great. She's basically an ex, I suppose, #1. She worked with Picard when they were doing the entire movement of the Romulans and trying to find them new homes, and all that shit that happened with the androids got Picard left, and she also quit the Federation. Sorry, she was fired by the Federation. And so she's a broken person. She abuses herself with alcohol and drugs, etc. She has a kid that hasn't seen her, or didn't look after her son properly. So she's a bit of a wreck. And one of the reasons that she's also a wreck is because of bad storytelling. For some strange reason, Picard, in 20 years, hasn't checked in on her. No world of Picard would that happen in at all. We've seen Next Generation and how he cares for people. He came back from being a Borg, for goodness sake, reclaimed his humanity. But you're telling me that his first officer who needed him, who ends up living in a trailer, like a trailer trash person, doesn't see him for 20 whole years? Yeah, that's bullshit. That's not how Picard would act. Doesn't matter how broken and distraught he is. He was always someone who looked after his team. And we're moving on to the next person. Also one of my favorite characters is Cristobal Rios. And he's the captain of the La Sirena, which is a ship that kind of looks like the Normandy from Mass Effect. Like, literally, it looks like the Normandy from Mass Effect. Anyway, they seem to have borrowed a bit, and that's played by Santiago Cabrera. And he's really good. I like him because his character is 5 or 6 characters. You've got the real man, and then you've got 5 holographic projections of him, each one of them representing his personality. So the computer does scan, and then it broke it up into an engineering version of Chris, and then you've got a doctor version of Chris, and then you've got a guy who kind of sounds like a French, like Foreign Legion killer kind of thing, and he sits around and everything. It's like, how do you kill people by getting off the ship? You're a hologram, you can't get off the ship. Anyway, strange. There is actually a really good scene where all 5 of them are sitting there and they're trying to get to the root of what happened to Chris and what he's blocked off and what he didn't let them. And they're all sitting on a couch, sort of like talking to each other. There are some fun moments in the show, don't get me wrong. It is a serious show, it's heavy, but there are some quite fun moments. That was one of them, was Chris talking to all the 5 Chris's or 5 holograms. There's another moment where you get Picard literally dressing up as a pirate, which is what they should have gone with in this show in the first place. It literally is a bunch of miscreants on a vessel, La Sirena, bouncing around the galaxy trying to help out this android. So yes, that was quite fun. There are a couple of moments, very few, but there are a couple of moments. And in among this, you've got Harry Treadaway, who plays Narek, who is the love interest of Soji. He's a Romulan who is trying to figure out where the androids are being made, because his belief and the Romulan Tal Shiar's belief is that these androids are going to destroy everybody, as I mentioned. So he sleeps with her, falls in love with her, and they find out where to go. And so that's cool. So that makes sense. He's good, and he was a good actor and everything. So yes, like I said, it's great acting. Issues with story in this, big time. Also things that people just accept. There is so much exposition in this that the first 2 or 3 episodes, I was like, please, just stop with the exposition. Like, they will sit there and they'll go, well, don't you remember? And it'll just go off on an exposition rant. And that's bad writing. That's bad storytelling. We shouldn't need that at all. In any show like this, not at this caliber. Maybe at the level of, I don't know, I can't even think. Christ, The Mandalorian could have done with some exposition because there was no story whatsoever. Anyway, but this, the exposition was bad. I think episode 8, they sit around a table and they just explain everything. They vomit the reason that they're doing things, and everyone just goes, sounds good to me, and just goes ahead and does it. Also, some really silly moments in this. You have what looks like tulips, like the flower, which are robotic ships, I think, that get sent into space, and they literally attack vessels that are hanging around, and they drag them back down to the Earth. One of these things, or 2 of these things, actually manages to grab a Borg cube and fuck it up, and make the Borg cube land on the planet, which is quite cool to look at. It's a nice visual. And no one asks why. That's the problem. Is everyone just accepts what the hell's going on. Why would you have flower, robot, bird, ship things? I don't know. Anyway, so like I say, the problem is that the writing, a lot of the writing, there's no reason for it. The things happen and people just go, cool, all right, absolutely fine. Like the entire plant of having a Romulan in the Federation for 40 years, they're doing this. Data was around in that time. The Borg were around in that time, and they didn't lift a finger. We should have gone for Data. Data's the motherfucker. He's an android and why didn't they kill him? They could have killed Data and stopped all of this. But they decided to do it after Romulus is destroyed. Makes no sense. So the more you think about this, the more irritated I got with it. Thematically, it is good. I did like the exploration of what it is to be a person or an entity, a sort of conscious being, which has been touched on so many times in Star Trek The Next Generation. In fact, they even have Bruce Maddox is in one of the Star Trek Next Generation episodes. I think it's The Might of Man or The Worth of Man or something like that. I forget the episode name, where he is charged with basically proving or disproving that Data is considered sentient. And he's brought back in this, not for particularly long, and that's because, as I mentioned earlier, Agnes Jurati kills him, and everyone just gets over it very, very quickly. So that's the biggest problem they have in this season, and I'm hoping they're going to fix it for season 2, is that the writing is all over the place. Alex Kurtzman gets a bad rap, and it's because of this kind of thing. I don't know if it was too many chefs spoiling the broth, or if it was the fact that this is it's not an episodic show, whereas Next Generation, most of the time it was an episode and then the new story starts and the new episode. We had a couple of those which were 2 episodes, Best of Both Worlds, for example. There were a couple others as well. But mainly you had, I think it was 24 episodes per season, whereas this is 10 episodes of one story. Now, it has been done before. Deep Space Nine did that before. In fact, when they started doing Deep Space Nine, they were terrified that it wouldn't work because a show like that had never done it. And it worked perfectly. You had this dark tone to Deep Space Nine with this background politics and religion running the entire way, permeating itself throughout the entire show, which is why, to me, the show has far more subtlety and nuance than The Next Generation, which is pick up and go, whereas Deep Space Nine is invest and you get your investment back. This, I didn't feel like I got the investment back because there was very little to be invested in because you're so busy being talked to and told what the story is and what you should be thinking. This is what it is. Why? I don't know. Just go with it. Cool. Wink. So that's why I give the show a 6.5 out of 10. It pains me. As I mentioned, I'm a massive Trekkie. Used to be a massive Trekkie. I don't walk around dressing up or anything like that. And I can see on Rotten Tomatoes it's got 88%. I think on IMDb it's on 7.6% or something like that. But I don't know. There was a lot lacking in this. A few beautiful moments, which I could count on one hand, which is not right. And I expect more. So hopefully season 2, which as I mentioned is greenlit, will have a lot more to offer. Anyway, I hope you guys do go and watch it though. Let me know what you think if you do. And I'll catch you later on the next Ginger Show, if we are still around with this virus. Cheers.